Hello, and welcome to today's panel, MBA Student Insights, Consumer-Focused Careers at Stanford GSB. My name is Rebecca Ackerman, and I'm a second-year MBA student here at the GSB. I'm joined by Christina Lamarka and Faiza Asvat, two of my classmates, and MBA 2 students as well. They are each pursuing career interest in the consumer-focused business space, and in our time together, we'll be talking about the student experience here at the GSB and how we're using it to prepare for careers after school. Please be aware that we won't be talking about the admissions process, the application, or financial aid today. You can consult the website or contact the MBA admissions office for that information. Now let's begin with introductions. As I mentioned before, I'm currently an MBA 2. Prior to the GSB, I lived in Houston, Texas, where I worked as a technology consultant before transitioning into strategic communications and strategy for an oil and gas company. I came to the GSB to pursue a career shift into marketing at a consumer-focused company, and I've used my experiences here to explore that space. Now turning to Christina, I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Thank you. So my name is Christina Lamarka. I'm from Italy, and prior to coming to the GSB, I was a management consultant based in London and later in Australia. And then I worked for an oil and gas company as well for a year before coming here. And I came because myself too, I wanted to move and transition into the consumer and retail space. But at the time, I didn't know really where. That's me.
Yeah. Thank you. Now I'd like to have Faiza introduce herself as well.
Of course. My name is Faiza. I'm from Panama originally. I worked 3 years at Procter & Gamble doing brand management across Latin America for brands such as Pampers and Charmin. Had a great time, but I realized that as I was moving up in my career, there were some skills that I still needed to develop, so I came to the GSB to try to round up those skills.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. We're so glad to have both of you here with us today. So I'd like to go ahead and dive in. We've heard from the traditional route into this space as well as a more untraditional route. So I'd like to just hear a little bit about what your decision criteria was when you decided to apply to the GSB.
So for me, I guess there were other schools in other cities that maybe looked more appealing from a consumer point of view, such as, for example, London or New York. But what really drove me to Stanford was the possibility to actually experience the Silicon Valley culture and see what applications might have into the consumer and retail space. Also, there was, I think, plenty of alumni from Stanford that had either started consumer retail companies or had covered prominent positions in larger corporations. So the club seemed to me to have a very strong reputation, and I was comfortable in coming here.
Yeah. In my case, when I was looking at what schools to apply to, the GSB definitely stood out because two of the things that I was looking for were developing my soft skills, so managing others, how to have difficult conversations, how to project power and project confidence, and the GSB definitely had the best professors for those courses. So I knew that I wanted to apply to the GSB. I also really liked the opportunities to explore topics outside of the GSB. Stanford lets you take classes as a graduate student in any of the schools, and that's a great tool to have as a leader for when you don't know exactly what industry you might want to go to after the GSB.
I've had a very similar experience. I came to the GSB because of a mix of both the culture and the relativity to the Silicon Valley. So coming from a tech background, I thought that was a really good segue into understanding how that really related to the consumer space. And there's just so many different experiences, as you guys know, being able to go visit companies or having some of those entrepreneurs come to campus. And then the exposure to developing both the soft and hard skills, I think is pretty unparalleled in other experiences. So really, really glad I made the choice to come here. So starting to dive into some of the academics, you talked about, Faiza, some of the soft skills that you've developed. Maybe you can share some of what your favorite classes have been to help you develop some of those.
I have two favorite classes that I've taken, and they're in the opposite spectrum of hard and soft skill. The first one, it's going to be a GSB classic. It's touchy-feely or interpersonal dynamics. I think it really helped me open my eyes in terms of how do I come across to other people and where am I not being an efficient communicator. So I think those are learnings that I'm going to keep forever. And on the other spectrum, the other extreme, I really enjoyed optimization and simulation, OSM as it's famously called. As I was taking that class, my initial thought was, if I knew this a year ago, I would have saved so many hours of my life just in terms of optimizing marketing budgets or calculating ROIs or just being more efficient overall. So those are the two classes that I would recommend everyone going into CPG or going into a consumer-focused class to definitely take.
And I imagine, did the name scare you off at first? Did
Yes.
you imagine you were going to get so much value from it?
I know. So OSM is not a required class. Is a required class, as in you have to take it as part of your foundations curriculum your first year. If I had to choose it on my own, I don't know if I would have, just because it sounds intimidating. But the fact that Stanford thinks ahead and knows what kind of courses are going to be useful in your life, was just such a huge help.
Thank you. And Christina, any courses that stand out for you that have directly related to a career in this space?
Yes, so for me, I guess the first one was Product Launch that we took last year, and it's an advanced marketing class with Libab, and I wasn't familiar with the space, and so it really helped me understand how customers interact with the product. Another class that was really helpful was an across the street class at the design school, and there we basically focused on need finding. So it's part of the design thinking process there, for which Stanford is extremely famous for. And there I really developed my skills in finding problems that matter to customers and developing products that actually address those problems. So those were my two highlights.
Great. I think that for me, a couple that really stood out to me, actually, apart from interpersonal dynamics, which you mentioned, and product launch, where I took a class on consumer search and marketing. So learning how to leverage tools such as Google AdWords and Facebook advertising to actually understand how you place an ad. So if you're looking at a website or looking at Facebook and you have an ad that pops up that's relatively familiar to something that you might have just been looking at, we learned actually how that happens. And for me, that was an extremely valuable learning that I was actually able to take forward into my summer experiences and my summer internships. So that was a really valuable course for me. And then I'm also currently in a course called Startup Garage. And I know that Christina has had experience in that as well, but you actually get to test out building your own product and learning how to acquire customers and how do you get close to your consumers, how do you interview them, and how do you really touch base to understand what a core need of that market is. And so for me, I've learned a lot of really essential marketing and consumer-facing tactics that have been really valuable for me in my career. If I choose to go the entrepreneurship route or if I choose to go the big business route, you're always going to have customers. So those have been two really valuable experiences for me. So apart from the academics, as I know, and I'm sure you guys can all relate to, the GSB offers so many different experiences, and as much as we are in classes, we're also taking part in a number of different activities. So maybe you can talk about some of the clubs or other extracurricular experiences you've had.
Sure. So, of course, there's the Retail and Consumer Club. And, for example, just yesterday, Stitch Fix came and told us about basically their story from the very origin in 2012 until the IPO. It was extremely interesting. It's senior management that comes, and you can ask very open questions, and they're happy to respond. And then another experience from last year was being a part in the marketing team of the Winter Gala. It's a charity gala that the GSB organizes, that the students at the GSB organize. And that was a good way for me to come together with classmates that I would have not otherwise met, and it was my first marketing experience. That was also very interesting.
I'll go ahead. Because I've had more of a traditional background, when I came to the GSB, I was looking to expand those skills into consumer spaces that I might not have access to before. So I'm very involved with the Arts, Media, and Entertainment Club and the Education Club. The Arts, Media, and Entertainment Club, because it's such a different industry, that I'm very curious to see how consumers operate in such an industry that I'm not necessarily going to go into, but it's good to flex those muscles in terms of understanding different types of consumers. The Education Club I'm very involved with because I'm a dual degree major with the School of Education for two reasons. One, I think with the changes of in technology that are occurring at such a fast pace, a big part of marketing is now going to be educating consumers. So I think you can learn a lot from learning how to teach, learning how people learn basically, and how to use that in marketing. So like you not only have the opportunity to look into consumer-focused groups or companies, you're able to use those same skills and flex them out in other industries or other areas that you might not have exposure to after the GSB.
And that's such an important skill set to have. I noticed that even though I was in big tech and big oil and gas companies, what I learned is that oftentimes you have a company that's setting the strategy, and it could be a marketing strategy, but there's not enough resources deployed to actually teach the consumers or teach even the rest of the business about how to get from point A to point B. So the education aspect is so important. And I think that's such a unique way to look at a dual degree and then look at how you actually build your skills, having coming in with the marketing experience.
Exactly. Like how do you teach someone to use autonomous cars, or how do you something that you can't even picture having as a part of your everyday life? How do you go about starting something so drastically different?
Right. And I imagine that before coming here, you probably weren't even thinking about how would I try and convince someone about how to use an autonomous car?
What is an autonomous? Are they already out there? Yes.
So it's another thing that we get being here at the Silicon Valley.
Yeah, definitely.
It's wonderful. Well, apart from clubs, I'd just be curious about career opportunities. So we talked about some of the clubs such as the Retail and Consumer Club. I know that there's a lot of different treks that those clubs take part in to make sure that you're able to go see these companies, see what roles are out there. So can you maybe talk a little bit more about the BBLs or some treks that you've been on and how that's opened doors up into the Career Management Center or into career opportunities?
So BBLs and also...
And what is a BBL?
Yes. So it's the acronym? Wow,
The
I'm
brown
international. The brown bag lunch. So it's basically an hour during lunchtime where the GSB intentionally doesn't schedule any classes so that companies or guest speakers or alumni can come and basically either host a panel or just give a talk about a specific topic or company. The Retail and Consumer Club, I think, hosts at least 2 or 3 a month. And so we have a lot of consumer-focused companies coming, and those have been extremely helpful because you get to meet, beyond what you hear from the company, you actually get to meet generally the CEO or head of strategy of the CEO, and it's a good way to make an introduction, offer your thoughts about the specific topic and create a relationship. And I know many of my classmates, including myself, have managed to actually either source potential internships opportunities or post GSB full-time offer through there.
Yeah, and I know for me, I went to a brown bag lunch hosted by DFS Group, which is a company that manages a number of the duty-free stores that you see in international airports, especially across Asia. And we had the VP of North America come to visit and come to discuss their business model. And it wasn't a company that I had been considering previous to them coming to campus, but ended up having a conversation offline with the VP of North America, and then ended up being able to do an international internship, which is called a GMIX, which is a global immersion program that's offered by the Career Management Center, and was able to go over there for a month and work in their international branding team. So like Christina was saying, there's so many different opportunities that you're able to leverage from these brown bag lunches. And a couple of ones that have stood out to me have been both the Retail and Consumer Club that has already been mentioned a number of times, but also the Marketing Club. We're actually working on planning a trek to go visit some of these companies, and how we choose the companies is often by looking at companies that are doing really interesting things right now in the space, but also companies that are looking to hire interns or hire individuals for full-time careers, so that we can start to prepare and set people up to move into these spaces. So I'd be curious, Faiza, what really stands out to you when thinking about this?
I also really enjoyed all the speakers that we get to have on campus, not only because it's opportunities to interact with CEOs, but it's also opportunities to get into their brains and understand the consumer trends and the challenges that they see in the areas in the next couple of years. So I remember Lolly and Pops coming to campus and having just an insight into what starting your own company in a very consumer focused
And it's candy,
looks like.
so
And it's candy.
everyone likes
I know.
candy.
Yeah, but it's very interesting to be able to very quickly, in an hour, get such a deep perspective of the consumer trends in such a wider range, from retail to food and beverage to CPG to blanking out.
Exactly. And I know we talked a little bit before, earlier in the week, about the Career Management Center offering a number of workshops and sessions to help facilitate the job search process. So maybe you can talk a little bit about some that stood out to you.
So the one that was definitely useful for me immediately was the 2-hour job search by Steve Dalton. I think it's Steve Dalton. You don't have to be a consumer-focused person to benefit from workshops like that. But all the workshops that I found very useful are very intentional in terms of the skill that they want you to learn or what you're going to want to get out of. So I also really enjoyed the how to make memorable presentations or how to network as an international student, or I think it's called how to manage U.S. networks. So I think they've all been very detailed, this is a skill that I'm going to get in 1 hour. You go and you actually end up getting that skill by the end.
And then you're able to apply it to the job search.
Exactly.
Afterwards. Are there any trips that really stand out? You mentioned that you haven't gone on any treks, Christina, but are there any trips such as maybe a required global studies trip or other experiences that you might have had that have lended way to learning more about the consumer space and multiple different countries across the world besides just our little bubble in the Silicon Valley?
So many. I recently led a GST to Mexico. And one of the meetings that we had was with the Mexico CEO for Kimberly-Clark. And we had a panel with him and a politician who talked about how changes in regulation are going to affect the company in the upcoming years. So changes in NAFTA or the new presidential elections are going to be happening in Mexico. And it's such an interesting conversation to be able to have with a CEO and a politician from a country that you're not familiar with.
Wow. And how did you get that meeting or get to lead this trip in the first place?
Yeah, so he's an alum. So we were able to connect with him. I might have already slipped in that I was interested in Kimberly-Clark. I really admire the company. So as a leader, you get to choose what companies you want to incorporate on your trips. It's a great opportunity to network with people that you might not necessarily know how to introduce yourself, and having to take 25 MBAs that are interested in your company is a great excuse to get to meet anyone that you want in a new country.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And what has been your experience with Alumni Outreach?
Super friendly. I've never not gotten a response from an alum, basically.
It's a pretty tight community. I think that's one of the benefits of having such a small class, but I've had the same experience. I know that for me, a number of the treks that I've planned or trips that I've gone on is you reach out to an alumni, and if they don't respond within a couple of days, they send an apology note that they're sorry that it's taken so long, but everyone's been very, very receptive. And I know that in the Career Management Center, one of the advisors there, every time I go, will send me a list of alumni that says, hey, reach out to this person and just grab coffee or go to their office and see what they're doing, ask how they decided their own career path, and especially transitioning into this space. that's been beyond valuable for me.
Yeah, I was doing a GBIX in Tanzania and had a lot of free time. And surprisingly, well, my nights corresponded to very early morning in SF or in the US. And I was able to have so many Skype conversations with alumni in my free time that I was super surprised. Like, just blindly reaching out to people in Sephora and Hasbro as I was trying to understand what I wanted to do after I graduated and leveraging my summer free time in a way to just hear about as many people's experiences as I could.
That's
And
really valuable.
was able to do that
Definitely.
all the way across the world.
Christina, I'd be curious about any trips that stand out or alumni connections that have really helped you boost your career, especially transitioning from oil and gas as well in consulting.
Yeah, so this summer I was returning to San Francisco. I was doing also a global immersion experience in Thailand at an e-commerce startup, and I stopped in London. And I just wanted to see what the opportunities were there. And so I reached out to just a couple of alumni that I knew were in London. One of them wasn't even part of the consumer retail space. And within, I think, I don't know, like maybe 12 hours, I was put in touch with 5 people who were working in companies that I could be interested in. And I managed to meet them within 48 hours in London, all of them. So even abroad, internationally, I found that the network is definitely there and people are excited to help you out. And that was really pleasant surprise for me.
And that's really important, that it's not just this bubble where
Here.
people are helpful.
Yes.
But I'd be curious, are you thinking about potentially staying here after school, or why is that international connection valuable for you?
I guess for me, as an international, I definitely want to spend 1 year at least in the US after school, but I want to keep myself the option of going back to London, where I used to work. And I think in Europe there's a lot of happening in the consumer and retail space. It's a smaller market, more fragmented, but there's a lot of brands there that are interesting to me. And so just nurturing those relationships and staying in touch over the year, those people are still there. And it's not a transactional exchange of emails. It's very much like, hey, I thought this could be of interest of you. Like, these are my thoughts. And they reply. It's great.
And that's the smartest thing to do. I think that probably one of the most valuable things that we've all experienced here is just being able to ask questions. So part of the learning process outside of the classroom is just being immersed in international perspectives and being immersed in learning about Kimberly-Clark in Mexico or planning trips or BBLs. And there's so many different opportunities to immerse ourselves in being able to learn more about the space. So what I'd like to do is just shift a little bit into thinking about career goals after school. So we're all interested in this space. Most of you, the two of you have had experience over the summer learning more about this space through internships. Can you talk a little bit about where you're thinking about going after school?
Sure. So one option for me is to go back into consulting, but this time in the consumer and retail space, and I know that the option is there. One other option, which is what I'm pursuing right now, is actually starting my own brand. It's like a fashion brand, and what has been incredible to me has been the amount of support that I've actually got here from an academic point of view in terms of classes that I'm taking that are supporting my objective, the professors and the knowledge that they bring and the mentoring that they do, and then once again the alumni network and the willingness that they have in sharing their own learnings, especially in the more entrepreneurship space. So those are my two options. I think there is time. It's like an evolving thinking process. There's time before graduation, but I can see how now, options are starting to sort of pop up in front of you, and you almost have too many options to choose, I would say. And so I think that was also extremely valuable for me to see that, despite the fact that we are in this, tech, it's like a tech-focused area, like still there are so many opportunities for people who are interested in the CPG consumer retail space.
And I think that's one of the things to highlight is that obviously we've all done the hard work to make sure that those options are there, but even probably the person that's done the least amount of work has found that there's multiple options and multiple career paths in this space, which has been a huge opportunity, I know, for myself.
And they're all so tempting.
Yes.
Like, it's so hard to be choiceful in what you want to do after the GSB because you just get tempted by so many cool things that you can do after you graduate.
Exactly.
So I found the CMC super helpful in trying to determine what is exactly that I want out of my next job and how do I stay true to that. So I've had a lot of one-on-one advising conversations with advisors at the CMC to really like write down in Hearthstone what is it exactly that I'm looking for and what do I want out of my next job and make
And
sure
you
that
know what you
Yes.
want. So maybe you can share a little bit with us about what you're planning to do next year.
So after, in 5 months.
Not even next
I
year.
know. I'm going to be doing a retail leadership rotational program at Amazon. I'll be able to test out different career paths within a very consumer-focused industry. So I'll be rotating between marketing, operations, third-party vendors, and different areas. I like the ability to be able to use a lot of the skills that I've learned at the GSB. So like operations, not my strength. But being able to know how to do it is so important just because as you move up, if you become a category leader, you'll have operations people reporting to you. So knowing what they do is super important. So I really value having that broad landscape of skills and experiences, which this rotational program is going to do for me.
I think that's fantastic, and I know you'll be able to use the experience and basically the proximity to where we are now to build into that e-commerce platform. So I think that's fantastic. And Christina, you understated a bit of what you've been doing as well. So Christina, I'm going to take this opportunity to brag about her, has been working around the clock and has really just harnessed so much interest from our classmates and what she's been working on in the entrepreneurial space. And although it's entrepreneurial, it's also very driven by her consumer interest. And I think the opportunities that you've had and the exposure to everything in this area has been beyond valuable. And to say that it's the community, I think is the wrong way to angle it. I think that you've just done a tremendous job driving that forward and figuring out exactly where your passions are. And that's what these past 2 years have really created for you.
Yeah, and business school is such a risk-free environment to do so. There's so many of us that are, testing products or services, not just in the consumer and retail space, everywhere, and we work all together at the co-labs, which is a shared working space. There are ideas throwing from a corner to the other of the room all the time, and it's risk-free. You know that you can always, go look out there and find plenty of opportunities. But for some of us, it will be a full-time career. Entrepreneurship will turn into something.
Definitely.
And as someone that's not doing an entrepreneurial role, being able to test out all the products
yes.
is amazing.
That is true. That is true. And I know for myself, I don't plan to go the entrepreneurial route, but I'm still trying to figure out which space is right for me. Definitely in the consumer space. I think you just have such a competitive advantage when you can touch and feel the products and know exactly who you're marketing for. So ideally, I want to be a user of the product that I eventually end up marketing or of the company that I end up working for. So still trying to figure that out. But with that said, I'd love to just ask you guys one final question. If there's any type of advice that you would like to recommend to other students that might potentially join the GSB community, any just lasting words or pieces of advice for them?
I think that once you get into the GSB, you have so many opportunities. It's very overwhelming. It's hard to choose what courses you want to take, what extracurriculars you want to be involved with. My biggest advice is dream big. Whenever you're trying to make choices in terms of what skills do I want to build, what classes do I want to take, think about the wildest role that you think you might have as like, I'm going to be CEO of X, and what do I need to get there? And then leverage the GSB to do as much as you can to prepare yourself for that huge, big role that you're going to have one day.
I think that's so true. For me, it's be open-minded. If I had even guessed the number of things that I'd be involved in 2 years ago, I think I would have been so far off. I mean, I had the opportunity to write a case on the mental health space, and I would have never said that I would do that 2 years ago. And then I've been able to intern in a couple of really incredible companies over the summer focused on the consumer space. And the access that we get to a number of leaders is just unbelievable. So I just say be open-minded. Don't limit yourself. Don't come in with hard and fast rules about what you have to do and won't do, for that matter. But be open-minded, set a plan for what you really want to accomplish, and just go after it. So I think that I've learned the most from those unexpected experiences, and I think that's the best advice that I can give to anyone that's thinking about coming here. So with that, I'd like to thank both of you for being here today, and we wish you all a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you.